I think the biggest thing is these guys, and they've said it multiple times throughout the year, they really love to play with one another. They're bought in on this season. They're bought in on the brotherhood, as they call it, and they want to get this 10th win and finish things the right way, which I think says a lot because, like you said, this is an era where if someone's not playing in the playoffs and they're a high NFL draft prospect or they've got potential to get selected, they might opt out of this bowl game. Look over at the Oklahoma side of the ball. Their top running back, who had over 1,300 yards, sitting out. Starting left tackle, sitting out. Starting right tackle, sitting out. Starting defensive lineman, who's an NFL draft prospect, declared for the draft, he's going to sit out. On the Florida State side, who's sitting out? Not one person. Every single person from top to bottom, even the guys that have entered the transfer portal for the most part, except for, I think, Sam McCall, Jarrett Jackson, maybe Rod Orr, all of those guys are still on the roster out there practicing for Florida State. Even Amari Gaynor, who's been on official visits all over the country throughout the month of December, out there making it to practice for Florida State. He's in Orlando. He's going to probably play some on Thursday, I would imagine, the last game of his Florida State career. So, I mean, that to me just shows buy-in. It shows culture, and it shows Florida State's doing the right thing off the field just like they're doing it on the field.
Hey guys, it's Terrence Mann. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. Go Noles.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Ward, a.k.a. P-Dub, in the house. So we're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. Go live, go Noles.
Hi, this is Charlie Ward, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, Go Noles.
This is Terrell Buckley. You're listening to Hear the Spear, presented by Noel Game Day. No Bloody.
But perhaps better known as the greatest corner to ever step on a football field, Deion Primetime Sanders.
Great Deion Sanders, my brother. What's going on, man? I could wake up to that greeting every day, man. That was awesome.
Hello, Noles fans. This is former Seminole Derek Brooks, and you're listening to Hear the Spear, presented to you by Noel Game Day.
James Wilder Jr. What's going on, James?
Thanks for having me on. FSOD, Florida State or Die, and go Noles.
William Bar None Floyd.
Gentlemen, what's up?
What's happening, guys? It's Logan Robinson from Hear the Spear, presented to you by NoelGameDay.com. Here live here in Orlando as Florida State is prepping for their big-time bowl game here on Thursday night against the Oklahoma Sooners in the Cheez-It Bowl. We just got done this morning with interviews with Mike Norvell. We had Adam Fuller, Alex Atkins, along with a handful of players, including Jordan Travis, Trey Benson. A lot of stuff that we're going to talk about later on in the show. Also, Florida State landed a commit during all of those interviews today. So a pretty jam-packed day as we were traveling down to Orlando, but still got a show to do. It's a weird night, Monday night, a little bit different than what we do on Wednesday nights, but still wanted to get a preview out to you guys before Florida State takes on the Sooners in a few days. With me this evening, Austin Veazey up top. He's our lead basketball writer at NoelGameDay.com, and down below is our editor-in-chief at NG. Gentlemen, it's bowl week. We've got one more game left. How we feeling?
It's crazy that we've made it this far, right? It doesn't even feel like this is the last week of the season for Florida State, but, in 3 or 4 days, it'll all be over, and we'll know if the Seminoles finish out with a 10th win for the first time since 2016. So, Florida State, they got a pretty big opportunity here on the table against a national brand in Oklahoma. I know they're a little bit down this year with the 6-6 record under first-year head coach Brent Venables, but the Sooners obviously are respected across the country. Everyone saw what Lincoln Riley has been doing there for years before going over to USC over the offseason. So, despite their record this season, this is still a team that has a lot of veterans, a good coaching staff, and they're going to present a challenge to Florida State.
It's almost it. It's almost over. Football season's almost over. It feels like just yesterday we were in New Orleans, pulling Logan out of a casino at 3 a.m.
Whoa, come on now. We don't have to start off that way. Come on.
It's been a much better season than we all anticipated, as we've all talked about the last few weeks. And I think we're all pretty confident. We'll get to it later, but we're all pretty confident that it's going to end on a high note.
Yeah, I think we all are on the same page there. Florida State getting close to a 10-win season, and that seems to be the focus of this team. We saw a lot of determination once Florida State started scout team prep and practice. A lot of focus switched there because there was a lot more laid-back practices, and Mike Norvell runs a tight ship during those. But something switched last week whenever we were able to be out there, and you saw a lot of the second team, third team guys run a little bit of scout, things switch, and this team is really, really focused on getting that 10th win. It means a ton to them, and I just keep on commenting about it, but we'll talk about that just a little bit later. We're going to jump into Florida State landing Braden Fiske, big time defensive lineman commit earlier today, and then we're going to talk Conrad Hussey too, because of course while we were on the show, he does it the next day on Thursday, but Florida State able to flip the Penn State safety there, and then we're going to jump all into bowl game prep along with our score predictions and all of that. So before we get started, appreciate everybody listening, hanging out with us. If you're on Facebook right now, feel free to hit the like button, share with your friends. Also, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button so that you get notified every time we release a new episode. We're trying to throw out quite a bit of content throughout the week, so highly suggest doing that definitely as we're leading into the off season. We're going to do a lot of media content out for you guys this off season. So appreciate everybody hanging out with us, but let's get started, man. So me, Dustin, we got here earlier this morning, and it seems to be a pretty good vibe. A lot of the FSU beats starting to arrive here in Tallahassee, and right when Jordan Travis begins his press conference, I look on my phone, and inside the Noel Game Day chat, John Jenkins out of nowhere says, "Hey, Fiske, he just went ahead and committed, by the way." And so while you have a majority of at least some star players from FSU, some of the coaching staff inside of the press conference room, Florida State lands the number 1 defensive tackle in the transfer portal from Western Michigan, a really talented and experienced player that Florida State wants to add on that D-line, something that we kind of talked about throughout the last couple of weeks, what they would do in that transfer portal. Definitely, if you're wondering what Fabian Lovett's going to do, you're already losing Robert Cooper. You lost Jarrett Jackson, too, to the transfer portal. This is a big-time major get and one of the most talented guys in the transfer portal at that certain position. A nice snag for Odell Hagan and Adam Fuller going into 2023.
Another immediate impact player for Florida State out of the transfer portal, Fiske, the 7th guy that Florida State has got committed so far. Obviously, the other 6 signed on Wednesday during the early signing period with Florida State. But yeah, like you said, Logan, a veteran defensive lineman coming in, someone who can instantly get into the rotation, if not start at Florida State. The 2nd defensive line transfer coming in alongside Darrell Jackson. And just looking at Fiske's stats, 45 career games, 31 starts during his 5 years at Western Michigan. Had a career best season in 2022, 58 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and 2 forced fumbles. And in total is the guy that has almost 150 tackles at the college level. So he's clearly a veteran and has played a lot of football. Even important to note, 84.5 grade on PFF this past season. That was the highest defensive grade on Western Michigan. So Florida State really bringing in one of the best overall players out of the portal. I think Fiske can really be a lethal pass rusher potentially for Florida State in the middle next season, and someone who's also going to be able to help stop the run. But, I mean, this just adds to now you get a veteran on the defensive line alongside some of that budding young talent that Florida State is going to have going into 2023 with Darrell Jackson coming in. You've still got Joshua Farmer. You've got 4 guys that are going to be redshirt freshmen over the offseason who I think, Logan, me and you like a lot of them guys a lot, like Io and Daniel Lyons, Woody. So Bishop Thomas, that's your guy. We'll see what happens here. But now Florida State, a veteran to stack alongside that young talent, and we'll see what happens with Fabian Lovett. I mean, this unit could be, once again, one of the strengths of the defense.
Yeah, he was the top 15 defensive lineman overall on Pro Football Focus. He generated, 48 total pressures up the middle. Like we talked about with Darrell Jackson last week. Just a guy that can push the pocket up the middle and really affect quarterbacks. That's huge. That's the easiest way to affect a quarterback in the pocket is getting up the middle, and it's a huge pickup. Guy that's, as Dustin mentioned, guy's got a lot of experience, which is something this defensive line needed, depending on what Lovett does. They need some experience in there. Mm-hmm. And he really beefs up that defensive line. Now we'll see what Jared Verse decides to do to round out the defensive line and Lovett as well. But huge addition. Hopefully they can add a defensive back here soon, but we will see.
And I think even sweeter maybe is the teams that Florida State was able to win out this recruitment over, which was hometown Notre Dame, because Fiske grew up in Indiana, obviously, and then USC, one of the hot powers out on the West Coast right now with Lincoln Riley and everything. A lot of hype around that program, and I believe Fiske was able to take an official visit out there. So for Florida State to win out over two premier programs in the sport. Both are, ranked in the top 25 and doing pretty well for themselves at the moment. I think it shows a lot about the direction that this program is going, and you're seeing the players now out of the transfer portal, the high school level, they're seeing that what's happening at Florida State and realizing that they can be a part of something potentially special in 2023.
I know you saw that salty Notre Dame article. That was pretty funny.
The NIL, yeah, I did see that
Yeah.
earlier. It was heavily in the Discord. Discord made sure to find that pretty quickly. Yeah, no, Dustin, you were talking about it earlier. We really like the younger group in that defensive line room, but they don't have the experience right now that a guy like Fiske brings to the defense. And you lose Jared Jackson, where Robert Cooper is moving along, kind of up in the air on what Fabian Lovett wants to do. We'll see if even Fabian Lovett's going to be playing this on Thursday night. There's a lot of things that Florida State needs to find an answer on, and it seems to be that Fiske is playing a pretty vital part in doing that. And Adam Fuller's got to be ecstatic. We saw him in the press conference during it, but, we can't ask recruiting questions and all that kind of stuff. But seemed to be a pretty happy guy during the opening press conference for the Cheez It Bowl. I mean, Florida State, too, if you think about it, whenever Fabian Lovett was out of the game throughout the season due to injury, Robert Cooper kind of there on his own. You had Jared Jackson, too, but who was also teamed up. Bringing in Fiske, and depending on Fabian Lovett, there's still, you got to add experience in there. If not, you're really relying a lot on Joshua Farmer to jump in, and then some of the even younger guys like a Daniel Lyons. You'll see what maybe Ayobame Tafase will do. A lot of unanswered experience that Florida State needed to go jump in that portal and land. And I don't really necessarily think, I'll take y'all's opinions on this, I don't think bringing in Fiske eliminates that Fabian Lovett's not going to come back. I think you can bring back Fiske and you can bring back Fabian Lovett, in my opinion.
I think it's feasible because Robert Cooper is obviously moving on. Jared Jackson ended up transferring to Michigan State. So there's a couple open spots right now on that interior defensive line, especially in the rotation, since Robert Cooper has basically been a starter for the majority of the season. Jared Jackson was involved in the rotation early on before kind of getting phased out down the stretch. But, I mean, there's definitely a case to be made for Fabian Lovett to return alongside Braden Fiske and these other developing guys in the defensive line room.
Yeah, you could bring Lovett back, start him and Fiske. You rotate Darrell Jackson on obvious passing situations. Bring along Daniel Lyons, bring along Joshua Farmer, and that defensive line's looking really, really nice for next year. We'll see what Lovett decides to do. It'd be huge if he comes back. The middle of the defense was a problem when he was out last year, or this year. But either way, it's a much improved group getting two transfers in that position line or in that position room.
And I mean, I'm excited to see it.
Dustin might be dealing with some connection issues. I'm sure. Here he comes.
Nope, he's not. Oh man.
I don't think. I'm gonna put him. I'm gonna put him down. I'm gonna put you down, Dustin, and then you work on that internet while I put you down there. Maybe he'll get the hint that the internet's kind of screwing up, but maybe he'll fix it down there. I bet what he was gonna say was Derwin James while we're live.
I was about to say it.
Yeah, just came down with a pretty big interception. If we were at home, then I'd probably try to put on my other monitor. But we were working with one screen, one iPad, and you know what? It's working. But Derwin James, shout out to Derwin James getting that interception. Let me get back Dustin and see if things are better for him. Things aren't looking good. Let's get him out of there.
No.
Things are looking great. But yeah, big time pickup for Florida State. And you need that. And I don't think it eliminates Fabian Lovett from coming back. That's not a scenario that never really popped up into my brain when even thinking originally about Fiske and him coming to Florida State. We have Dustin Lewis back after what was going to be a really awesome story that you were going to tell us, but it kind of messed up with the internet there, D-Lou.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The Wi-Fi decided to disconnect and make me look dumb, but I just want to say I'm really excited about this pickup just because I feel like Fiske, he's bringing in a really strong work ethic to Florida State. Just looking at him whenever he came into Western Michigan in 2018, obviously a guy who at the time was an unheralded recruit, flying under the radar, 6'3", 240 at the time, coming into Western Michigan in 2018, and now 6'5", 300 pounds. I mean, this guy has built himself into a grown-ass man in the weight room over the last 5 years and is bringing something powerful in the middle to Florida State. So, and you got to think, a guy like that, unheralded, he's got to have a chip on his shoulder. Now, is Logan having trouble, or is it me?
No, we're all good. We're live. I'm trying to get the Twitter link to be able to tweet live of our topics that we're talking about, but I'm having to go backwards in a lot of things. So that's what we get, though. We're on travel.
Great
duty.
Start.
We're having fun. We're figuring out in the first 10 minutes, so then the rest of the show is just going to be A+ material. Let's jump over to a big-time commit that Florida State was able to flip on Thursday night. We talked about him on Wednesday. He didn't make his decision until the next day. Florida State felt pretty good going into Wednesday. All of us did, that Florida State would be able to flip Conrad Hussey, a safety, one of the top in the top 11, whatever rankings you want to go off of, but one of the top safeties in the country. We talked about him a lot last week. I really like him. I mean, seems like a smart player, puts himself in the right position for takeaways, but this one came down to, once again, a pretty entertaining commitment ceremony. It seems to be the case. I feel bad for FSU fans and even us too, because we're like, do we press publish? Do we not press publish? What are we doing here? But you got the long ceremony. He's got the hats. He's tossed. I guess the new thing is tossing the hats, I guess, ever since Travis Hunter did it. But tossing the hats, and then
I don't think he tossed them. I think he just handed them off.
He kind of handed. It was not a full-on Travis Hunter.
He was polite.
Like 5 rows back kind of toss, but no. But then eventually he takes off the jacket and shows off the Florida State gear. So, and I think he had a hoodie on too. So
yeah.
But around this whole family, I thought that was awesome to have the whole family around for it, and the content was great. But D-Lou, you've been following this one since visiting. It kind of felt like just a roller coaster for a little bit there, because Penn State, it seemed like Miami was out of it, and then Penn State was trying to do as much as they could to keep him committed, but Florida State was able to make a big flip here. One of the few that we've seen Mike Norvell make of this significance. It's a much needed position group. There's much needed position group. Austin, we talked about it too last week. There's got to be some help there, and depth wise, someone that you can build up like a Shaheem Brown. But Florida State, Adam Fuller able to grab him.
Yeah, we've seen some recruiting decisions, some wild recruitments go the other way, not in Florida State's favor. So coming into this one and then seeing Hussey hand off all the hats, and then he brings over the bag, and a lot of anticipation there. I think Florida State fans were a little scared, but good to see the Seminoles, I think, rebound in a big way and finally went out on one of these wild shockers that hopefully Miami and Penn State fans are dealing with pretty well by this point. But a huge pickup for Florida State at a position of need. Obviously, Jamie Robinson hasn't made an official declaration at this point, but we are expecting him to pursue a professional career based on his previous comments ever since Florida State defeated UF in the regular season finale. And then we don't know what's going to happen with Akeem Dent. So right now, the future for those two is up in the air. Obviously, Shaheem Brown, who looks like a potential future star on defense for Florida State, will be back in the fold in 2023. He's going to be a crucial player in the back end. Now you're echoing. You're in here 2 times.
Who did that?
Wow.
I don't know what happened there.
Now it's echoing.
Really hold up. I don't know what just happened there.
Man. All right, now it stopped. Where was I at? Yeah, Shaheem Brown, potential breakout star for Florida State coming back in 2023. And, with the uncertainty behind Jamie Robinson and Dent, it was crucial to get a guy like Hussey. What are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on?
You keep talking. You keep talking. I'm trying to get this dang link, all right? I haven't even really drank enough for this. I haven't drank enough
Absolutely crucial to get a guy
you
like
Hussey,
who is immensely talented. And yeah, just for
I'm done. I'm not tweeting that anymore. I'm not tweeting live. I'm not live tweeting. I thought I could do it tonight. It's just not happening. No Twitter views for us, but you know what? We love our YouTube listeners and our Facebook people.
But just for Florida State to win out on this one, they needed it with the uncertainty at safety going into next season. And, we'll see about some of the other true freshman signees in the defensive backfield. Obviously, 5 total DBs coming in for Florida State. I think a guy like KJ Kirkland, who's sitting around 6'2" right now, 180, 190 or so, he would probably be a perfect build-wise coming in at safety. So we'll just see how it works out. And Florida State obviously still active in the transfer portal. Main target right now, Virginia transfer cornerback Fentrell Cypress, who was here on an official visit a couple weeks ago. And then as far as guys returning on the roster, I know we didn't see him play this season in 2022 due to an unclosed situation. But Travis Jay, I'm not really sure what his future looks like right now, but if he does decide to return to Florida State in 2023, obviously a guy who has played safety in his college career, and with the depth, I don't want to say concerns, but it's looking a little thin back there at safety right now. Wouldn't surprise me if Travis Jay is able to get back into the lineup. They give him a look back at safety.
Yeah, Hussey's got a serious chance to play some minutes this year, depending on what happens with Jamie Robinson and Akeem Dent. Either way, I think I'd still like them to go after a guy in the portal, just a guy with some experience that can play some minutes here and there. But it's a big pickup, getting that kind of flip from a program like Penn State that's killing it on the NIL side of things. Just a big pickup for Norvell and the staff, and should really give them some momentum going into the 24 class for next year.
I think the really big question here is, what is Akeem Dent going to do? It felt like going into the season that he would end up moving on along with Jamie Robinson. And now it's kind of up in the air. He hasn't really given the media a full-on answer. And that's how it is for a lot of these guys, including Jared Burris. We'll talk about in a few minutes, along with Jamie Robinson. Not really full-on answers, just focusing on the bowl game ahead. But, Dent dealt with some injuries throughout the season. But you see the uprise of Shaheem Brown there. Could you bring back Akeem Dent, and alongside you have Shaheem Brown, but you're really thin there, guys. And so having Conrad Hussey, a guy in-house that you can develop, is huge. Do we know if Hussey's early enrolling?
Hussey will be in the summer. Unfortunately, St. Thomas Aquinas, they just don't allow people to graduate early for whatever reason. The same thing that happened with Julian Armella.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Well, dang. But either way, you still want to have a guy that you can start doing things with in the summer, and you gotta hope that Akeem Dent comes back. I think that's the big question there. And we've seen some guys move around. I mean, you think about it, Renardo Green was at safety. Now he's down at corner. That seems to be fitting pretty well. But if you could bring in going to the Virginia transfer with Cypress, man, you would love to have that going into 2023. That would be an improvement from 2022 in a major way, because I've really liked what Renardo Green has put together this whole season. And I talked about that with Jamie Robinson today. I feel like Renardo Green doesn't get the respect that he deserves. If you go back to that LSU game, when we were previewing it, the main focus was how is Florida State going to take care of LSU's wide receivers. And for the majority of that game, they did. That last drive there is the last drive. Jaden Davis is trying to do whatever he can to put a touchdown into the end zone. But looking at Renardo Green, he did what he needed to do against, I got to say it, I mean, this is what he wants his name to be said, but Gavon Booty. It's really Booty, but just weird saying that on a live stream in front of a couple hundred people. But yeah, I mean, I've Renardo Green, don't really talk about him as much, just because whenever you have a good corner, it doesn't get brought up on broadcasts a ton, and that means he's doing his job. But Jamie Robinson talked very highly of him and said the same thing. I don't think a lot of people talk about him enough, and I think he gets kind of overlooked a tiny bit, and you're immediately looking for someone to replace at a corner position, and people trying to remove Renardo Green. Renardo Green's not going anywhere. And Florida State staff really like what he's put together this season. So adding Cypress on the other side really would excite some FSU fans going into 2023.
And even without Cypress, I don't think it's crazy to say that this unit underperformed during the first half of the season, and as of late, they've really locked down as a group outside of Renardo Green. Jarian Jones, Greedy Vance, Kevin Knowles, Amarian Cooper, Azaria Thomas, all of those guys have really stepped up their play down the stretch for Florida State, and all 6 of them are going to be back in the rotation for another year next year. So now it's looking like this cornerback room potentially could be a real strength for Florida State on defense, with a lot of veterans coming back, some guys that have played for multiple years at Florida State in Adam Fuller's system and under Coach Woodson. So some depth coming back there at cornerback, but I'm going to be interested to see the decisions that I expect Jamie to leave, but we'll see what Akeem Dent decides to do and how Florida State kind of attacks that safety room to rebuild the depth.
And you kind of touched on this earlier, just non-football related here, but that's the main reason. Kind of, if you guys are on our Discord, kind of gave a reason there, but didn't see Travis Jay this season. I don't think he'll be playing in the bowl game, but he's been very active. We see him in practice. He works a lot with scout team. He even worked a little bit at scout team quarterback throughout this season. But he's very active, and they still have him while he's practicing. They've got him at safety right now. So back to kind of where he started. They moved him around a little bit. They had him play at corner this last offseason, played around with that, didn't work. Then he played in the season in 2021. Just, natural athlete, but, just depends on, if he's going to be here next year. So that safety room has a lot of question marks around it, but you're able to cross off one of them with having Conrad Hussey now in that room. Anything else transfer-wise? I don't think we missed anything. Nowadays, there's stuff left and right, but really, Fiske and Hussey picking the Knowles, and we'll keep an eye on Cypress. And we don't really have a timetable, D-Lou.
Not really. It seems like it's flexible. He could potentially take maybe one more visit in January before deciding, but I think that's still up in the air. It's not really officially scheduled at this point. And then as far as other guys to watch for, Miami offensive tackle John Campbell was in Tallahassee for an OV a couple weeks ago. He recently had can't remember the exact name off the top of my head, but a UF offensive tackle entered the portal, has some experience there. And then you got Gilbert Edmonds over from South Carolina, a defensive end transfer. So I think those are maybe some fringe guys right now that Florida State is evaluating, and we'll see if things progress further. But just with the way that Florida State's been active in the transfer portal, it does seem like they're pursuing at least a fourth transfer offensive lineman to join that fold already of Casey Roddick, Jeremiah Byers, and Keandre Jones. It's
crazy to say it. They kind of don't need it. There's a decent amount of experience coming back. You obviously get 3 transfers in, and there's a lot of talented youth in that room. You arguably don't need another offensive lineman, but I don't think we're going to argue with anything Alex Atkins does at this point.
Yeah, came into this season with 19 scholarship offensive linemen, and I mean, at some points the depth was still tested with the amount of injuries suffered on that front line. So I think just with the history of coaching this team and seeing kind of how things have progressed so far would make sense just to go out and at least add an insurance guy. And I think either the UF guy or John Campbell are potentially those options, but we'll see because there's still over 20 days for guys to enter the transfer portal. As bowl games wrap up, as the college football playoff wraps up, there could be even more high caliber prospects that aren't even on the radar yet that decide to enter the portal. So I think Florida State, they're just keeping everything open right now because based on my projected count, got Florida State at 86 of 85 total scholarships. So they're technically over. They can be over the entire offseason. They've just got to be at 85 by the time you get to the start of the season, so August or so. I expect the numbers to work out over the offseason. Probably some more departures coming for Florida State after the bowl game as far as guys hitting the transfer portal or maybe deciding to go pro. We're not exactly sure just yet, but we'll see how it works out. Florida State going to remain flexible, I think, in the portal and potentially be active in the spring as well.
And speaking of spots, I guess we should note that Malik Feaster entered the portal a few days ago. They got in really late in the process last year. Not missing anything there, but it is another spot that they can use.
Yep, opens it up there. Mainly was working with scout team throughout the 2022 season, so not much of a major loss there in production-wise. Keith is asking here about, in addition to another safety, what about another experienced linebacker in the portal? Florida State bringing their most experienced guys back this next season in 2023, but maybe in the transfer portal you can find a guy that has a couple of years left and a talented linebacker there. I think, looking at what you're bringing back, looking at DJ Lundy, you got Caleb Deloach, you got Tatum Bethune, who we got to hear from earlier today, and then you got some guys behind him too. You see Brendan Gant, who's made some strides there and has been pivotal too in special teams. But then you look at the guy who I brought up to Tatum Bethune about, Amar Graham Jr., who is going to see the field. That's what I'm going to hold Bethune to it. But, he said that it's going to be hard to get Omar Graham Jr. off the field, but that's your really only true young linebacker in that room until you get Blake Nicholson. What do you think this is a good idea, guys, or do you think they're pretty set? I definitely think it's one that you would love to add a little bit more of some guys in there, but it's not vital maybe for 2023, but moving forward, yes.
I think with current state of the room, probably not this offseason, because just like you noted, Logan, you've got your 4 top guys in the rotation coming back. Omar Graham Jr. seems like he's going to develop into something. Steven Dix Jr. should be returning from that season-ending injury. We'll see what he decides to do this offseason. And then, like you said, Blake Nicholson coming in over the summer. DeMarco Ward, the 3-star 2023 linebacker signee, already on campus and going through bowl practice with the teams. I think Florida State, they've got a good nucleus of veterans and young talent right now at that position room. So maybe next offseason, whenever you lose Kalen DeLoach and Tatum Bethune, you're going to dip into that portal. Brendan Gant will graduate next offseason as well. So next offseason, I could see an addition, but right now I think you're pretty set, and there's some other areas of the team that need to be addressed.
Just the way the defense is, they only play 2 linebackers at a time, and some guys rotate in and out, obviously, but it's only 2 linebackers on the field at a time. There's no reason to go get another guy in there. It's just going to crowd the room up a little bit and maybe hurt the development of some of the younger guys. So, like Darryl mentioned, not a need right now, but maybe next offseason.
Mm-hmm. Let's jump into some bowl game prep, guys. We're down here now. Got to have all the press conference throughout the day. Had a boatload of players that we talked to. But first off, we heard from Mike Norvell. Said that it's a lot different for the bowl game, but it's also kind of adjusting to how it is whenever you're on a away game, or kind of how you were against going to face LSU in New Orleans, which we were there for, but just acclimating kind of. And we showed up to the press conference. They were in the stadium today, and we heard the music playing, something that Florida State likes to do during practices. So kind of keeping it the same as much as they can, like they do in Tallahassee. But the kind of vibe I got from Mike Norvell is that he's really liked the focus that this team has put together, because Florida State, they have a certain thing in the locker room or somewhere inside the Moore where it shows 10 wins somewhere. Like, that's one of their goals, and they want to be, the 25th team to be able to say that they've won 10 games. And I love how all throughout that press conference this morning, it feels like this whole team was educated on that, because each one of them came up and said the same thing. They're like, yeah, we got to get that 25th one. We got to get that. About every player came up and said that. And it's kind of been that way since not the off season, but throughout bowl prep, I guess you can say, until Florida State found out who they were facing. That focus on getting 10 wins is such a big factor for them. And you don't see that a lot with other teams and other players, some of them opting out. Stars like this, Jared Verse, Jamie Robinson, these guys playing in this bowl game when they could easily maybe opt out. Definitely if Jared Verse is looking to go to the league, along with Jamie Robinson, could easily opt out. But it seems like Mike Norvell has done a big-time job in that locker room, guys, with the culture and making it focus towards this program and what the fans deserve. And they absolutely deserve a 10-win season. And they seriously want to put on a show Thursday night, like Jamie Robinson said, and do that in front of what should be a heavy FSU crowd in the Camping World Stadium.
I think it just, like you mentioned, I think it just shows the culture that Mike Norvell has kind of built and nurtured over the last couple of years since he arrived at Florida State. We've seen the progressions year by year, and we all look at the on-field progress as the overall goal for Florida State, but really the off-field progress has been underrated. Just the way this locker room has been fixed, all of the guys buying in. I don't know really how to explain it, but everyone's just kind of on the same page, on the same wavelength. And I think the biggest thing is these guys, and they've said it multiple times throughout the year, they really love to play with one another. They're bought in on this season. They're bought in on the brotherhood, as they call it, and they want to get this 10th win and finish things the right way, which I think says a lot, because like you said, this is an era where if someone's not playing in the playoffs and they're a high NFL draft prospect or they've got potential to get selected, they might opt out of this bowl game. Look over at the Oklahoma side of the ball. Their top running back, who had over 1,300 yards, sitting out, starting left tackle. sitting out. Starting right tackle, sitting out. Starting defensive lineman, who's an NFL draft prospect, declared for the draft, he's going to sit out. On the Florida State side, who's sitting out? Not one person. Every single person from top to bottom, even the guys that have entered the transfer portal for the most part, except for, I think, Sam McCall, Jarrett Jackson, maybe Rod Orr, all of those guys are still on the roster, out there practicing for Florida State. Even Amari Gaynor, who's been on official visits all over the country throughout the month of December, out there making it to practice for Florida State. He's in Orlando. He's going to probably play some on Thursday, I would imagine, the last game of his Florida State career. So, I mean, that to me just shows buy-in, it shows culture, and it shows Florida State's doing the right thing off the field just like they're doing it on the field.
We talked a lot this season about how the culture is being fixed with Norvell and how the locker room was reacting. The biggest indicator of culture is how guys use their voice to the media, and it's all the same message from the top down, from Norvell to the coordinators to Travis to any player that's on that podium. They're all saying the same stuff, and they're not just saying it to say it, it's stuff that they actually believe, and I think it's huge. It's huge in college, not just football but basketball as well. These guys have the same voice, the same consistency, and they want to go out and prove that this program's back on track where it needs to be and where we all expect it to be.
You know, throughout, like, I know it's going to go over, like, everything that we talked about throughout the year, but it's really pivotal. Jordan Travis told us today, and I'm glad that a player said that, so definitely Jordan Travis, because we talk about it all the time. The biggest focus for Mike Norvell and what he's done is bring in players, definitely transfers, guys that have only maybe played for a year, like a Jermaine Johnson. We'll see what Jared Verse does, but some guys that have only played for a year fits so well in that locker room first. It's people first and then talent next on the field. And Jordan Travis really highlighted that during his press conference today, saying that Mike Norvell, one of the biggest things that he respects about his coach is that he's bringing in good people into that locker room, and that develops friendships, it develops trust, and the biggest thing that Florida State has needed for a lot of years, as FSU fans will agree with me, accountability, making mistakes on the field. You're going to be held to a standard, no matter if you're a coach, and we're seeing that. It's no longer coaches holding you accountable. It's players on the field that we're seeing with our own eyes holding each other accountable for stupid flags, making mistakes, being on assignments, and that's developed over the last 3 years. Of course, it wasn't the easiest road, but this is what you had to do in order to take it to the next level. And you're seeing a lot of other programs. It's going to take them a couple of years. Miami. It's going to take them maybe a little bit longer for Florida, but with Mike Norvell and what he was given, it's almost kind of astonishing how quickly this has been able to develop into a 9-win season with a team that really truly likes playing with one another. And there's no opt-outs. There's none of that. This team is wanting to do this for Florida State because they think that the fans deserve it. And I just think that's really cool. And that all starts up from the top with Mike Norvell. And just pretty cool stuff from Jordan Travis this morning. Let's jump into some player interviews, too. We heard from Jared Verse. We heard from Jamie Robinson. Jared telling us that we'll jump right to the good stuff. Not making a decision yet. Seems like if there's going to be an announcement, he said it's going to be a week or two after the bowl game, but said that he's meeting with coaches, with his family, getting the most information that he can get, but still kind of up in the air on what he wants to do. I'm sure the bowl game will play a big part in that. Definitely, D-Lou, when you were talking about offensive tackle and defensive or right tackle for Oklahoma.
And left tackle.
Yeah, exactly. He's going to face another defensive tackle. But yeah, the left tackle and right tackle being out for the game. Jared Verse just over here licking his chops along with Pat Payne and D-Mac. But just no answer yet on that side of things for Jared Verse and Jamie Robinson. The same thing, although we did hear him after the Florida game tell the media that was going to be his last game in Doak and how special that was, beating Florida, having the fans on the field and everything. So at least in our minds, maybe Jamie is kind of going the media route, and I'm sure that's what he's told and all that kind of stuff. But I think we're all in agreement that Jamie Robinson, I wanted Jamie Robinson to get the opportunity to go to the league, and it was also a big deal for him to come back this last season. Anyways, NIL opportunities helped a ton with that. So Jared Verse, though, up in the air. CBS Sports, we put out an article earlier this last week about him being projected in the first round there, going to Seattle, and then you'll see some other projections of him being top 10 in there, and then you'll see some though where he's second and third round. It's just really he's got to do his homework, and whoever he's given him some information, it's a big time business decision for him. But I think Florida State would love to have him back, of course.
Of course, they would love to have back their best pass rusher. What you're saying, but yeah, we'll see how it works out. I've been in the boat that Jared Verse was going to go pro, probably over the second half of the season, but at this point, I'm just not quite sure since he's kind of dragging it out a little bit. Same with Fabian Lovett. It seems like maybe these guys are having a tough time making this decision, which just goes back to showing how much they love playing at Florida State and love playing alongside some of their teammates in the locker room. If FSU is able to bring him back, I mean, man, it's just becoming an embarrassment of riches for Florida State on both sides of the ball at this point, depending on how they close out the rest of these transfer portal recruitments. I mean, you're just looking at an insanely stacked team coming into 2023, and I mean, maybe top 10 preseason potential. I didn't think I'd say that, but it's stacking up right now on both sides of the ball.
All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it'd obviously be very nice to have Jared Verse back. Everyone's in agreement. You're not going to see anyone going, oh, man, Jared Verse needs to leave. Obviously, yeah, it'd be great to have him back. But at the same time, if he doesn't, the development's been there in that room where someone's got the opportunity to step up, whether it's Pat Payton, whether it's somebody else. There's plenty of talent in that room. But obviously having a guy like Verse back would be huge for next season. We'll see what he decides to do after this bowl game.
Yeah, ginormous. I think, too, if Jared Verse ends up leaving, you got to see someone step up. And I know what I'm going to get out of Pat Payne, definitely with another offseason, him continuing to get better and to see improvement. But if that's going to happen, Verse is gone, I got to see Byron Turner step up. We've seen signs of it here and there, and we just don't see much of in-game signs. We see it in practice, and we maybe see a few things on field on Saturdays, but it's just because he hasn't gotten a lot of PT. Also dealt with some injuries throughout the year. But if that's going to be someone to step up, I want to see what Pat Payne did. I want to see Byron Turner make that same switch there, and I do think there's a chance. He's got to put on more size though, like Pat Payne did. Pat Payne put on some serious size when we got to see him. D-Lou, that was what workouts were those? Those were the I
guess the tour of duty.
Tour of duty, yeah, that was tour of duty when we saw him. We're like, oh, that's number 56. That's Pat Payne right there. Guy that worked his ass off in the weight room with Coach Storms during the offseason, early part of the offseason. Then you saw him fall camp, and it just started being put together. I want to see that same development happen with Byron Turner if Verse is gone. Because you've got some youngsters, yeah, you got some younger guys, but, and also I do want to see, let's bring this up here, I want to see a position change on defense. I want to see Aaron Hester go to linebacker. I want to see if that ends up happening there because it just doesn't seem, I've spent a lot of time watching one-on-ones. I just don't see him being a pivotal pass rusher for Florida State, but at the linebacker position, I would love for him to be alongside with Omar Graham Jr. developing under Randy Shannon. I think that's if Aaron Hester is going to stay at Florida State, that's going to have to be a move, in my opinion. We'll see what Adam Fuller and Mike Norvell and Randy Shannon want to do there, but I just don't see Aaron Hester, who still a true freshman, a lot of football ahead of him. I just don't think the size-wise is going to work for him, for at least what Florida State likes to do at the defensive end position. I don't know if you kind of agree with me there, D-Lou, since you were at practices.
It's a good note. Honestly, I meant to mention him earlier whenever we were talking about the linebackers because I do see that as a potential move this offseason. I mean, I even noticed actually just randomly going through Twitter the other day, his Twitter bio outside linebacker at Florida State. So, hey, maybe you just hit on it, Logan. But, I think – his future at Florida State is probably some type of maybe a pass rushing hybrid at linebacker, maybe kind of like what they were going to do with Amari Gaynor. It didn't quite work out with Gaynor, but we'll see how Hester progresses throughout his career. A guy who kind of pretty highly touted coming in, a Florida State legacy, and still got some upside in his game. High hopes for him.
I want to run through a couple questions in here. This is from Stan, our guy in Discord. Did you get any personalized Cheez-It bags?
Not yet.
Trust me, if we had gotten them, it would have started off right here in the camera showing you guys. I think maybe we'll get them at the press box on Thursday night. Those will be tweeted immediately. Don't worry about that. And then our guy Witt is also in here. While in Orlando, are there any opportunities to watch practice at the Camping World Stadium? So it's pretty locked down. We don't even get to see a full practice, and I guess we sound like we're pretty spoiled because Mike Norvell does spoil us, but I don't know if it's because the bowl and what they like to do with their requirements, whatever it is, but we only get to see the first couple periods of it after stretches. So we're kind of in the same boat as you. We're not going to see a lot of practice stuff, but we'll be tweeting live updates from practice, and you look for our practice report afterwards. But pretty locked down this week on that side of things.
Unfortunate for sure. And just real quick, apparently Derwin James was just ejected.
Yeah, I was just about to say, it's kind of a Bush League call, but, it is a no-fun league after all. It's a vicious hit. He absolutely smoked this guy. But it is 2022 NFL football, so.
Wow, Derwin James ejected.
I don't know if you can call that a hit on a defenseless receiver. Maybe.
I think it was more leading with the helmet than anything. But
to me, it looks like he hits him with his arms. He pushes off. I don't know.
There's a question in here from our guy Tom on Facebook. Do you think Rodney Hill runs with the ones on Thursday night? Well, with the factor of Trayshawn Ward, Trey Benson, and Lawrence Toafili being fully healthy, that's not going to happen. But I think you will see it's going to be hard to get 29 off the field. That's going to be the theme going into 2023. I think you'll see Rodney Hill definitely if Florida State's able to run up the score. We're getting close to score predictions, guys. So get ready for that. But if Florida State's able to find a lead later in this game, I think overall that running back room, who they really love each other, would love to see Rodney Hill go in there and get as much playing time as possible. That's kind of the theme for every position group right now on this team, which is awesome to watch. See the celebrating on the sidelines for some of these younger guys, like a CJ Campbell walk on, go in there and score. That this team loses their absolute mind on the sideline, and it's special to watch. But yeah, you'll see Rodney Hill, but we don't expect him to be starting.
The plan coming into the game from per Norvell was they weren't. I don't think they were going to play him just because of the redshirt rule. But with the waiver that you can now play anyone in a bowl game, and if they played 4 games or not, it doesn't matter. It doesn't count against their ability to redshirt. It wouldn't surprise me if Rodney Hill gets in there because, man, that kid is good.
Kind of touched on Conrad earlier, but Derwin's a different animal. I look at Derwin James's film, and there's only a few that I've will sit there and watch all throughout. I don't care if it's 10, 15 minutes long. I'll go back and watch Derwin's highlight tapes. Not saying Conrad Hussey cannot be like Derwin James, but I think there's a lot to be answered on that. But I love aggressiveness. I love aggressive players. My favorite player being Timmy Jernigan. I love physical guys definitely on defense, and that's what Florida State and Adam Fuller is trying to build. But they're wanting to be some smart guys, and from what I see, more than anything, I like the aggressiveness, but I think he's a really smart player, and he reads his assignments pretty well. So Florida State got a nice snag there.
At the same time, there's not many 6'2", 215 safeties that run and hit like Derwin James does. Derwin's a freak of nature. I don't think there's ever going to be another Derwin. Derwin's a one-of-one.
I remember watching some lifting videos of Derwin as a true freshman coming in, benching 405. A DB 405.
He's a freak of nature. And at the same time, you put him on a basketball court, and he's the best player out there, no matter who he's playing against. Windmill dunking, doing everything. He's a freak. That's all he is.
So there's no hit on Conrad Hussey, but it'd have to do quite a lot. I want to go into some NFL because we kind of skipped over a couple of weeks since we've been doing the show, but a big-time weekend for a lot of former Noles, including Cam Akers, absolutely destroying the Denver Broncos, obliterating them, bringing over 3 touchdowns, also had over 100 yards in scrimmage. I mean, not a bad day for Jalen Ramsey got an interception too, along with that game.
Akers basically got Nathaniel Hackett fired, if you want to think of it that way. Dalvin didn't do much against the Giants, but he had a good game last week against the Colts with that big screen pass touchdown towards the end of the game.
He's still got that speed.
He still got it. He's not as good as he used to be. You could tell that injuries are starting to catch up to him a little bit. But his burst and his lateral quickness is still unbelievable.
Imagine this: you see Dalvin Cook, which they are going to fight really closely here, and congratulate. Well, I'm not going to say congratulations. Yeah, because I guess still got playoffs to go to. But if Dalvin and the Minnesota Vikings can go and make a run and get a Super Bowl like that, I mean,
right.
Wow.
Right.
Looking at Cam Akers, who just won one at the running back position, then you see Dalvin Cook, who I think is very much deserving to win a Super Bowl. We know the caliber of talent that he did here in Tallahassee. I think FSU fans knew the most about the thrill of watching Dalvin Cook and the ability that he would have going into the league. That's why we were very high on him, talking over other running backs that went in that draft.
Yeah.
Leonard Fournette, who can barely, even though Leonard Fournette, of course, he just had his best game. So now I'm talking trash about him, but he just had his best game of the friggin' season. But hasn't been the case all season. Dalvin Cook was a different animal, but I would love to see him have a big, fat Super Bowl ring on his finger.
I know better than to expect Minnesota Vikings playoff success. I have no faith. They'll end up being the 2 seed and lose to the 7 seeded Detroit Lions by 2 touchdowns. I have no doubt in my mind.
Just seems different though this year because usually y'all lose those games where it's going to the very end.
We just lost to the Lions 2 weeks ago. But the Vikings are 11-0 in 1-score games, which has, I'm starting to lose my hair. You can see it. That's all thanks to the Minnesota Vikings.
Wanted to mention this too. Josh Sweat picking off Dak Prescott for a pick 6, outrunning him too, getting off the tackle. That was awesome to see.
Which the fact he wasn't a Pro Bowler was bullshit.
That was
I'm sorry, I'll say it. He should have been a Pro Bowler. He's been so good this season for the Eagles. I'm so happy for Sweat. I had a class with him when I was in college. Just a really good dude, and the injury he had in high school, you can still see the way he runs that it still kind of affects him. But he's had such a good season. He's got 11 sacks, 31 tackles, a forced fumble, and now a pick 6. Like put this dude in the Pro Bowl.
I'm hoping that there'll be some guys that end up playing in the Super Bowl. Yada yada yada. I'm not wishing any kind of injuries on anybody, but I think there'll be a way that he'll fit in there because well, you know what? He might not even have to play in the Pro Bowl. He might play in the friggin' Super Bowl with how the Eagles are looking this year. So we'll see what ends up happening, but he does deserve the Pro Bowl recognition. All right, let's jump into a little bit of some Oklahoma here. As you were noting earlier, Dustin, we were talking about it at dinner. Oklahoma's lost a lot of guys, some pivotal players, including their leading rusher this season, opting out of this game. You're losing your left tackle, your right tackle. You're losing also your wide receiver, who had the 4th most receiving on the roster this year. There's a lot to where Florida State's bringing back their entire team for this game, like we talked about earlier, and Oklahoma kind of going through that phase of, hey, moving on, don't want to play. We went 6-6. Who gives a crap? But Florida State very keyed in on this game. It's going to be at 5:30 on ESPN. We'll be there for full coverage on Thursday night for you guys. I'm excited. I'm happy to be here. We had a really good time in New Orleans. That was obviously, all fans know, was a phenomenal ending. I mean, being down there, being able to video that, Jared Verse slamming off his.
Oh, you're talking about the game. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about the game.
I'm thinking about other stuff.
Well, exactly. Man, you want me to make another glass? I will make another glass.
I don't think you need my permission. I think you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I don't do. But yeah, I had also a pretty rough Sunday morning, but we made it to the game somehow. Anyways, just overall, a fun season. You had the 3-game stretch where Florida State lost those games, but you kind of saw a switch after the NC State game a little bit with Jordan Travis and the way that he turned into more of a leader. And I've seen that since he announced that he was coming back to Florida State. He's turned into a vocal guy, very hands-on. He's very competitive now and a little bit more vocal towards the defense, which I've never seen before. But gets a little, he gets a little chippy, and I like it from him. This team is ready to play on Thursday night. Jamie Robinson said, we're tired of hitting one another. We're ready to go out there and hit someone else. And it kind of gets the feel of how it was in fall camp. And this team could be very explosive on Thursday night. How are we feeling, gentlemen?
I'm interested. Florida State coming into this game at pretty much full strength, whereas Oklahoma, they are going to be missing some guys, but the Sooners, not resting on their laurels coming into this one. We heard from quarterback Dylan Gabriel today, wide receiver Marvin Mims, defensive end Ethan Downs, linebacker Deshaun White, and they all see this as an opportunity for younger guys on the roster who didn't hear their names called as much during the season as a chance for them to step up in the lineup and really make an impact. So they all have some confidence that despite losing some starters coming into this matchup, that they're still going to be able to compete with Florida State at a high level in this game. But, I mean, man, losing your starting left tackle, your starting right tackle, your top running back, that's going to be really tough for the Oklahoma offense to overcome. But, I mean, they do have some terrific playmakers. Marvin Mims, who I just mentioned, being the top one, 52 catches, over 1,000 yards, 6 touchdowns this season. He can take the top off a defense, and Florida State secondary is going to need to key in on him.
I mean, they got a very talented quarterback, and Dylan Gabriel had a tremendous career at UCF after Mackenzie Milton went down with his injury. And then he went to a place that fits him pretty well in Oklahoma, but the defense has just been so bad for them this year. And Dustin already mentioned they're losing a defensive tackle, but they're allowing, what is it? 5 yards a carry? Yeah, 4.5 yards a carry. I think they've had 6 games or 5 games allowing 200 or more rushing yards. There's plenty of opportunity for this Florida State rushing attack that's had some really big games against some really good defenses for them to go out and have a really good game against a really bad rushing defense. I'm really, really excited to see what the rushing offense can do in this one. I'm also excited to see what Jared Verse and defensive ends are going to do against a true freshman tackle. As Dustin mentioned, they're going to be missing their starting left and right tackle, so they're going to have a true freshman starting out their left tackle, and Jacob Sexton, who was a 4-star, but for your first game to come against someone of Jared Verse's caliber and Patrick Payton's caliber, it's a tough test. Florida State's played some freshman tackles this year, going back to the LSU game, but it's much different in a bowl game when you've had a season of experience versus a guy who's making his very first start.
You know what stands out to me? If they're going to start, they're going to start that true freshman. It goes back to the LSU game when they had Will Campbell for LSU playing there at the tackle position. We saw what Jared Verse was doing that entire game. We talked about it while we were watching the game. I was like, watch Jared here. He is absolutely bull rushing to get back there, and they're created a lot of pressure on Jaden Davis during that game all throughout the night, and really was using bull rush. It was kind of his main force there, and that was pretty impressive. But just goes to show what Jared Verse could do along with the other guys. And I don't sleep a lot on Derek McLennan. I think he's going to have a big time year next year. You get to see Pat Payne, but that pass rush should be able to take full. Jared Verse is looking to put on more tape. If he doesn't, and indeed try to go up to the league, man, that should be tape all night long. Not that it would be against some major kind of competition, but tape's tape, and he can put in some work. So, and to see a lot of guys being the healthiest they've been all throughout the season, and Jared Verse will be one of those guys, along with some other guys. Going to the offensive side, seeing Trey Benson kind of dinged up a little bit against Florida. He'll be a full go on Thursday night, which will be nice to see. And that's been kind of one of the biggest storylines throughout the year, watching Trey Benson, a guy that was not talked about highly. A lot of FSU fans weren't so much of a fan of him coming, ends up turning heads, making people shut the F up. And he did it alone. And, his announcement of him coming back was one of the most anticipated ones, along with waiting on Jared Verse here. Of getting that guy for 2023 is huge, but to get him one last time while he's in his groove against an Oklahoma defense on the rushing game, which has been absolutely atrocious throughout the year, and Florida State's offensive line bringing back their starters again healthy, it kind of just sets up for Florida State to be able to manage this game. And I thought Mike Norvell was able to do that against LSU. They were able to take care of the ball. Time of possession was huge. This should be another case of that against Oklahoma, where you should be able to run. If you want to try an explosive play, you can try Johnny Wilson. You can try a deuce, but you should be able to run up their gut on Thursday night.
And I don't think it's going to be easy because Oklahoma, they do have 3 extremely productive linebackers they're going to be putting out there. The 3 Ds is what we'll call them: Danny, David, and Deshaun, the 3 starting linebackers for the Sooners. They've combined for 300 tackles so far this season. So they're kind of the key cogs there in the middle as far as stopping the run. And then you've also got defensive end Ethan Downs, who I mentioned earlier, 13.5 tackles for loss this season. Oklahoma actually leading the Big 12 in tackles for loss. So, I mean, they've been not a very high-ranked defense. That's kind of whenever you look at Oklahoma, it's kind of like a seesaw. Number 18 offense in the country, an elite unit there, and then the number 122nd defense in the country, allowing over 453 yards of offense per game. So that they haven't been great, but for some reason, I mean, they're leading, like I said, leading the Big 12 in tackles for loss. They've been kind of opportunistic, and they're excited for this challenge against Florida State's running game. And going back to the other side of the ball, those missing tackles for Oklahoma on the left and right side, I think that has got to be really the key to the game for Florida State, with a true freshman, like we mentioned, making his first career start. On the other side, you've got a redshirt sophomore coming in at right tackle who doesn't have a ton of experience. And then you've got some very good defensive ends for Florida State, led by Jared Verse and Patrick Payton. Leonard Warner could get in there and be productive as well, alongside Derek McClendon. So Florida State, I think that's got to be the battle that you win. Dominate the edge of that offensive line. And then remember, Oklahoma is without their top rusher. They're averaging over 200 yards rushing per game. So to lose Eric Gray is a really big loss for them. We'll see what happens. It looks like Javonte Barnes and Marcus Major are probably going to take the majority of the snaps for the Sooners at running back. And if that name rings a bell, Javonte Barnes, true freshman running back who Florida State was actually involved with in the last recruiting cycle, ended up going with the Sooners over the Seminoles. And now a year later, he faces them in a bowl game. So pretty unique situation there, and I think Florida State's defense, they've got to be chomping at the bit here with these crucial losses for Oklahoma.
It's pretty funny because I remember when he chose Oklahoma last year, a lot of us were like, wow, he's going into a crowded backfield, and now he's going to be started in a bowl game. But it's still a ton of rushing offense without him, or without Eric Gray. As a team, they rushed for 2,700 yards, and Dylan Gabriel's plenty capable as well of making something happen with his legs as well. They'll be just fine on the rushing end. It really just depends how those tackles hold up against Florida State's very talented pass rush. I'm excited to see what happens in this game. I really like the way Florida State matches up, especially with the losses Oklahoma's had with opt-outs.
There's a question on here from Tom. Do you think the wide receiver Winston Wright will get any plays, or is he completely off the table? I think right now it seems like Florida State is preparing for him next season. No reason to burn him at all. I don't think – I know Winston wants to play. Every player wants to play, but there's no reason to do this in the bowl game whatsoever. So I think you'll see him next season. Hopefully, if recovery continues to go better, we'll keep an eye on that once spring hits. So looking forward to seeing him. The kid is working a ton to get back, and there's a lot of respect between him and Mike Norvell on doing so. So no reason to get Winston right up there. Definitely with the wide receiver room that you got, yeah, I think you're going to be just fine on Thursday night. Rob's saying that he thinks that it's going to be a 45-17 type of game. Travis throws for 250, and Trey Benson goes off 135 on the ground. I don't think that's too far off. I don't think Rob's too far off there, honestly. He might have just called it there, Rob. Yeah, I think, one thing Adam Fuller pointed out this morning was watching Dylan Gabriel, and Jamie Robinson commented on too, they could not allow the pass there. And there's a lot of things that Dylan Gabriel too can scramble. And if you have your pressure on both sides of the ball, there's a good chance that Dylan Gabriel is going to pull up. If Florida State can contain there, and it's going to be big on the linebackers, not allowing those scrambles to turn into first downs. I think it's going to be a pretty big game there for Randy Shannon and his unit. I'm not allowing Dylan Gabriel to use his legs as much, because I think it's going to come down to cracking off the side, and there's going to be some kind of, hey, I've got to get out of here, I've got to pull up, and sometimes that can cause some assignment disruption for the secondary. Florida State's done a pretty good job on that throughout the season. We've kind of seen a hiccup here and there, but overall so much better than last year. Linebackers, I think, will have to play a pivotal role for Florida State on containing Dylan Gabriel if he starts to get a little antsy in that pocket, which I think could end up happening like we saw against LSU with Jaden Davis.
And Florida State obviously has played a couple quarterbacks who can run this season. You mentioned Jaden Davis. You had Louisville with Malik Cunningham, who made some ridiculous plays that night. Obviously, Anthony Richardson for UF. So Florida State, they've played some athletic quarterbacks this season. Dylan Gabriel, you can consider him a dual threat, but he's not up to the level of those other three guys that FSU has faced. So I think they should be up for the challenge, and they should be able to handle Gabriel's athleticism.
Going into the offensive side before we get to score predictions, what do you want to see from this offense? What do you think creates success on Thursday night? Who ends up having a big game maybe? We always kind of all go off of Jordan Travis here, but maybe outside of JT, who do you think can have, a pivotal game for Florida State on offense? And we talked about it. There is some lack of defense for Oklahoma in that run game, but who could really step up here and say night by the third quarter?
For me, it's just the running backs. Florida State entering this game 7 straight games of 200-plus yards on the ground to conclude the regular season. So, this unit has really kicked into sync. Obviously, the rise of Trey Benson has been tremendous and quite a story for Florida State fans this season. But Lawrence Toafili has remained reliable. We've seen Treshaun Ward, when he's healthy, make impacts in that backfield. And then Rodney Hill, whenever he gets in there, he ends up making a spark play. CJ Campbell as well. So, I think it's really just the running backs come out, run with that same mentality and toughness that they've had throughout the 2022 season. Follow your offensive line. Dylan Gibbons up there today. It seems like he's pretty excited to get after it against Oklahoma on Thursday night, and just trust the coaching and the play calling, and I think everything will work out.
I was going to say the exact same thing about the rushing attack. Oklahoma's 0-5 in games that they've allowed 200 or more yards, so you really got to hit that rushing mark. Just continue to pound it down their throats, and just keep going at them. The more you suck those linebackers in, it's going to open everything up for Jordan Travis and the rest of this offense. I really think this offense is going to have no issues moving the ball.
I think you'll see an available Darren Williamson too for FSU on Thursday night also. So that could
He's
be
on the depth chart.
Yep. So that could be another addition for Florida State's wide receiver room, which in some of those games, Jordan Travis went to Williamson quite a bit, kind of was a safety blanket at some points. Williamson, I'm sure we'll see quite a bit of him. Johnny Wilson here is brought up in the chat from Miss Carol on Facebook. What are your thoughts on Johnny Wilson staying or not? I think all in agreement here that we'll see him in 2023 for Florida State. Too much inconsistencies. What drop ball is one of the things that Arizona State they've been working on to build consistency there. You see the physical attributes. You can see the big plays. You can see the big third down plays. You see the red zone threat that he brings. You see the toe tap there in the end zone. He has those abilities, but really when you go to the NFL, these scouts are looking at consistency, and as a wide receiver, you've got to catch the ball. And too much inconsistencies, in my opinion. You'll see him dressed out as a Florida State Seminole in 2023. And, if he can put that last little thing there together, it's going to be hard for, Johnny Wilson to not be drafted in this next draft just because of what he brings to the table. Size-wise, speed-wise, length-wise. And if he can get those hands, these two things right here, that is a wide receiver that will be drafted that we haven't seen since I don't know what year a wide receiver has been drafted. Did Auden get drafted, or was that free agent?
He was seventh round.
Yeah, Auden Tate was 7th round.
Okay, so that was the last one right there then. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that wild?
That is pretty crazy, but I pretty much agree with every point you made there. This season for Johnny Wilson, really his first season at the college level where he's been able to contribute at a level like this. So he's still gaining that game experience and, still learning how to use that 6'7" frame. But the potential is there. I think if he were to declare for the NFL this season, maybe someone takes a flyer on him in the 4th, 5th, 6th round or something like that. But if he can come back to Florida State, become more consistent when it comes to catching the ball. He's a little bit banged up in 2022 as well. So stay healthy and just continue to progress because his athleticism at 6'7" is just nuts. He's another guy that I feel just like Jared Verse would probably kill the NFL Combine whenever the day comes that he's out there, just with his measurements. And then whenever they watch him run the 40, I mean, 6'7", that kid can absolutely fly with those long strides. So, I mean, the sky, in my opinion, the sky is the limit for Johnny Wilson. If he can come back and put in another standout campaign in 2023, he could very well hear his name called on day 2. I think you're muted.
I sure am. Thank you for that.
Normal microphone. He still muted himself.
Well, I'm over here doing 10,000 things. I'm trying to navigate and make sure that we talk about our wonderful sponsor before we jump into score predictions for Florida State versus Oklahoma. Shout out to our friends at Alumni Hall. I personally went by before I came down here to Orlando, got some stuff for the family, went Christmas shopping, got them all hooked up with a few pieces of gear. Appreciate them for always sponsoring the show. Make sure you guys go stop over there. They are in the Miracle Plaza. There's a lot of good food spots, a lot of good things to do shopping-wise, and there's also a grocery store right there. So if you're looking to go shopping, there's a lot of other things you can do around in the area and also grab some lunch. So make sure you guys go check out Alumni Hall. A lot of great FSU decor, too, if you're trying to prep up the season ahead or get ready for the off season or even post game after the bowl game. I'm sure Alumni Hall will have some gear after the Cheez-It Bowl. Hopefully, not holding them accountable now, but hopefully they will have some Cheez-It Bowl stuff up. I know they did have bowl game stuff, Cheez-It Bowl pregame stuff, so hopefully they'll have some post-game stuff. If it goes in FSU's favor, I guess Florida State does need to win the game first. So please, Mike, win the game so Alumni Hall will have some of that bowl game stuff in there. As always, though, you can get 10% off if you're an FSU student, faculty, or military. Just go in, show them your card, and you'll get 10% off any purchase. So a great deal there from Alumni. I appreciate them sponsoring us all throughout this month. Hopefully be able to keep this relationship with them moving on into 2023. They've been great, so appreciate them hooking us up with the FSU listeners and giving them the code to use. So appreciate Alumni Hall. Let's jump into some score predictions, guys. I have no idea who was the last person.
I think I'm up. I think.
You might be, and since you said it and you went ahead and nominated yourself,
that's fine. I'm prepared.
That's fine. Now the one.
I'm ready.
Okay.
It's always a little like it brings the smallest amount of anxiety when you're looking at all the bowl projections and everyone's predicting games and everyone's like, yeah, it's Florida State. Like I haven't seen a single Oklahoma pick. So obviously you're like, well, is it really going to be this big of a blowout? Florida State should win this. I think fairly comfortably. There may be a little bit of a rust after not playing for a month, but Florida State's too talented. Oklahoma's got too many opt-outs. I got this one 41-24 Florida State.
Ooh, we're gonna be close, VZ.
We are gonna be close.
All three of us are. I have a feeling.
This is why I go first, so that no one says I took their answer. This is why I go first.
Make sure you're in the chat right now. This is our last game preview of the season, so even if you don't usually comment, whoever you are, Bob or Ricky from Facebook or YouTube, make sure you drop down your score prediction. We need the score predictions. We need them. And make sure you hit the like button, too, before y'all leave, because I know that is coming. We're about to bounce out of here real quick. But make sure you hit the like button. It's the last game preview. Makes me sad, man. I always hate this part. I'm excited about the bowl game, but then when I leave the stadium, I'm like, damn, this is it. No more game previews, and we get to talk about basketball, which – all right, I don't want to dampen the mood or anything. I don't want to dampen the mood. But yeah, drop your score predictions down below. Dilo, do you want to go next? I mean, I've got mine.
Oh, sure. So Austin said 41-24, I think, right?
Yeah.
All right. So I'm kind of in the same boat here. I think Oklahoma missing multiple starters, two very important positions of the offensive line, and a key playmaker in the backfield. It's just going to be too much to overcome at the end, whereas Florida State obviously bringing a full-strength unit in here on a pretty big winning streak at this point. 5 straight victories for Florida State to conclude the regular season. They're kind of hitting on all cylinders right now. Seems like this team is focused on finishing things out the right way, and Oklahoma is as well. I think they're going to put up a fight for FSU in the first half, but just the depth that Florida State has compared to Oklahoma right now is going to be too much in the end, as well as some inexperience at offensive tackle. So I'm going to go Florida State 42, Oklahoma 27.
42-27. Okay. All right. So it's not mine then, but we are close though. We are very close. Y'all practically said it all. I don't want to repeat everything for everybody listening, but I'm right there with you guys. I got Florida State 44, and I've got Oklahoma 21. I think there will be a few plays where Oklahoma gets some touchdowns. It might be a late touchdown here and there, but it doesn't. Just from seeing practices, seeing the way that the guys are talking, this team is coming here on a mission, and that's a scary sign. And Florida State's been able to win those games usually when they're on that kind of trend. And I see them. I feel it's a game that feels a lot like the LSU game, just in preparedness. And I think Florida State has that same type of mentality, so that this shouldn't last too long. And I do need to mention too, I love that Tom's in here giving some credit to me. Not that I picked our Florida State to beat LSU this year, but I am working on going 13-1 on game predictions this year on wins and losses, if I'm correct, D-Lou.
Well, they're about to play their 13th game, so I don't know how you
12-1. 12-1, I mean 12-1.
I'll have to pull it up, but right.
I think, and last year I was tied there, I guess, with Charleston, who does a great job for us. But I just didn't want to, mention that too much. But I did want to mention, 12-1.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to really.
It's fine. I usually go for the bolder take, so it's fine. Go ahead. Have your victory lap.
Here we go.
Have your victory lap. Go ahead and brag. It's fine.
And you know what? I should have never predicted Florida State to beat Wake Forest. I don't know why I did that. And my brain told me no, but I was like, you know what? Let's have some fun.
That's how I felt about. I guess it was a Wake Forest game too.
That's how I felt about that. That's how I felt about the NC State game. Granted, they should have won. Florida State should have won that game. I will stand my prediction, but it sucks.
Yep. And I'm kind of right there with you too, Mr. Two first names. All right, we're on the second glass of red wine, so things are getting a little bit harder to figure out there. But I don't see the defense giving up 20-plus points, 45-10, go Noles. So I don't see that. I don't see that the case either. But I watched
Dylan Gabriel's
that many points to UF. Huh?
Yeah, Dylan Gabriel's too good of a quarterback. I don't think you're going to hold him to 10 points.
And Marvin Mims is a terrific wide receiver. Wouldn't surprise me if they connect on a couple.
Carol's on here saying, thanks for a sensational season of broadcasting. Looking forward to next year with such a great football team and talented additions. Yes, appreciate everybody, including you, Carol. We've gained a lot of new viewers, listeners, a lot of new people in the Discord, and a lot of new YouTube people in the comments. So appreciate all throughout the season. We do this because of you guys, and seeing y'all engage with us every Wednesday night in the comments really, shocks me at some points, because we're just three idiots here that just like talking about football and basketball, and three friends that like having a good time. So I appreciate everybody. It's been a long season. Me and Dustin were talking about it earlier, and VZ would very much agree. It's been a very long season, but
it's just getting started for me.
Yeah, I think it's over. I think it's over. Let's be honest.
Wow, thanks. I appreciate that.
You get it. The extra 6 months off.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
No, definitely appreciate y'all hanging out with us. It's been a privilege to be able to put on some stuff for you guys, and the guests that we had on. Shout out to I guess this will be our last. Well, we'll do an instant reaction after the game, but shout out to all the guests too that we've had throughout the season. We've had some really good times, and even some current players now that we've been able to bring on the show. And we got some really cool opportunities heading into 2023 with NIL stuff. So appreciate everybody listening to the show. We will talk to you guys. We will be doing an instant reaction right after it. So make sure you guys stay tuned to that. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube. If you're on Facebook, make sure you're liking the page. So then it will show up on your feed whenever we do go live. You can watch it afterwards. If you're on iTunes right now, feel free to rate 5 stars. It goes out to Spotify, Google Play too. Appreciate y'all. We'll have more coverage throughout the rest of the week, all the way up to game time. And as usual, we'll have full coverage there. Talk to you guys on Thursday night after Florida State faces off against the Oklahoma Sooners at 5:30 ESPN. See you guys. Bye.
Mama told me not to say a word. 17, 5, same color t-shirt. Mama told me same color